Hey guys, we're talking about battle scars today. I'm James Smith. Some time ago, I was laying on my back in a surgeon's office. This was like a long time ago now, and I was waiting to have staples pulled out. And I'd had surgery already, and I'd healed up supposedly for a long time. And so he comes in and gives me a once over and says, "Hey, how are things coming along? How are things healing up?" I said, "Fine, I think. I got a scar and things are all okay looking." And so he said, "Well, let's check it over." And so he starts pushing on things, and he pushes on one spot and says, "How's that?" Okay. Pushes somewhere else. Yeah, well, that's okay too. Push somewhere else again, and all of a sudden you get this huge reaction out of me because it was painful. I mean, it was sharp pain. It wasn't just like a pain. It was rough. And they said, well, it's a good thing that I, looked things over pretty thoroughly, because sometimes when you've had a wound, things can look okay on the outside for a long time, but actually not everything that needs to happen is happening on the inside. And so we have to go back and work through that a little bit and get things healing up the right way. And, that was a really good illustration, I think, for something that happens to people in real life, not just physically, but on the inside, in the heart. And I know that life can be really, really great sometimes, but the truth is, at some point, we all take wounds of some kind, hits. I call those things battle scars. After the wound has died down a little bit, it scars over and things look like they're probably back to being okay again. But if you've had any experience like mine, you see that over time, some of those things come back to bite us later on. Sometimes you think it's been such a long time since that thing, I've maybe even forgot about it. It's been so long. But then, surprise, something comes along and hits us in a way, or nudges us in such a way that all of a sudden the same kind of a pain, the same kind of a reaction is coming out of us, just like it did when the thing first happened. And all of a sudden, we're feeling all the same things, and we're feeling the same offendedness or scaredness or rage or whatever. And you'd probably wonder, where did that come from? Like, it's been so long since that thing happened. Why am I still feeling these kinds of things when certain things set me off? And maybe if you haven't seen it in yourself, you've probably seen it in other people, for sure. Because you've probably got a friend somewhere that's reacted to you in a way that just didn't make any sense. You wonder, why are they treating me like this? I didn't do to them what that person so long ago did to them. My ex, maybe my ex did this terrible thing, but now I'm treating this new person in my life just like it was them that did it all along. That doesn't make any sense. People do have reactions that'll shock you, and sometimes it's a sign that something happened to them that you didn't do, but now you're paying for it just like the first person should have. And so, you want better. You want better. Nobody likes to think that you're going to be stuck in this prison of dealing with the damage of wounds from a long time ago for the rest of your life, right? You can't really live like that. Nobody wants to live like that. So I'm going to share something with you this morning from Hebrews. And the writer is talking about pain, and he's saying that, there's something to understand about pain that you have to understand first. You got to change how you think about pain, but there's also something at the end of it that he puts in there that he says makes the difference between whether or not pain actually helps build us stronger or destroys us. There's really no in between. It's going to be one or the other. And so I'm going to share that with you this morning. This is from Hebrews 12:7. He says, quote, "It is for discipline that you endure. God deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline?" Now, enduring is the pain that we're talking about. Those things that hit us and they hurt and they do some damage. He's saying we go through things, we endure things all the time. Life is going to bring those things on. You and I both know that. He says, but it's for discipline, that this happens. Now, does he mean God is punishing people? He's just angry with us, and so he puts us through stuff to get us back or take revenge or whatever you call it. And no, that's actually not it. That's not really what discipline is at all. Discipline is learning how to be consistently the same throughout good or bad or medium times. It's about being the same person in every circumstance over and over and over and over again. It's training. It's training. And the writer's saying, God allows you, because you're his sons or his children, daughters, because you're his children, he allows you to go through some things, very real things. And it's so that you have the opportunity to learn and build faith by having him walk through hard things with you during those times. And he goes on to say, if you're without discipline, of which all have become partakers, okay, we're all going through this stuff, you and I, the believers of the church that he's writing to, okay, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. In other words, you're not really God's children if you don't have God walking through hard things with you, good, bad, and ugly, throughout life, and having him coach you and having him direct you and correct you and encourage you. That's what a father does. So you can't just be a child of God without allowing God to be your father. There's really no way that can be. It's just not real. It can't be. And if you have gone through very, very difficult things, you're probably thinking the same kind of things that I would think. Well, I'd rather he just, spare me from all of that stuff, and maybe we could just, forget about the hard stuff and just, go on from there. And the writer acknowledges what you and I sometimes feel. He says, all discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful, but painful. In other words, it just seems like senseless hurt. It seems like no good can come of it. But he goes on and he says, yet to those who have been trained by it, afterwards it yields what he calls the peaceful fruit of righteousness. Peaceful fruit of righteousness. Man, sometimes when I'm going through stuff that hurts, I don't think about peace at all. I think, man, my life is upset. My life is messy right now, and I want to get out of this as soon as possible. But he's saying, if you have God with you in relationship, walking through whatever comes your way, over time it's going to give back something. It's going to pay off in something. It seems like really bad now, but it's going to pay off. And he says it's going to give you a sense of peace because of something that's going to come out of that, which he calls righteousness. And the easiest way I could explain that would be to say that having God walking through life with you and allowing him to coach you through things and use things to make you stronger over time, it's going to make you more and more like him. It's going to make you more and more right. It's going to show you more and more evidence that you are in fact becoming like your Father in heaven who made you, and give you a sense of peace that you are on the right track, that your relationship is growing with him, and that you are safe. You can be confident in your future with God. Now, I don't know about you, but you probably have some things that you could point back to in life and say, yeah, it's great. Maybe God used that, and maybe God used that, but there is at least one thing I just can't make any sense of. I don't see how I've been helped by this. In fact, you may even think that it's causing you damage years later, damage right now in your life, making your relationships harder, or making your finances harder, or making something a lot more difficult than it ever should have been. And there's this pearl at the end of it that's so important. You can't miss this. I have to share this with you. He says, strengthen the hands that are weak and the knees that are feeble, and make straight paths for your feet, so that the limb which is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. So in the first part he says, look, it would be easier to just avoid the path that God wants to take you through, this training program. He calls it discipline. It would be easier to just step back and away and just ease off the gas and take an easier route instead of just facing your future and facing the pain in the moment and going to God and inviting Him. And it would be so much easier. But He says, don't do that. He says, stay on the path. Stay on the path. Make a straight path right through where God wants to take you through. And don't look back. Don't get hung up on how hard it is. Strengthen your hands. Make your knees less feeble. Strengthen your knees for this journey and just keep going. Do not stop the training program. Keep going. And this is why he says that so that the limb which is lame won't be put out of joint, but rather be healed. I don't know if you know this or not, but if you, let's take your leg for instance, strain your leg muscle, get some kind of an injury, and it's painful to put any weight on it. What happens is, this is for everybody, temporarily you learn how to build your whole life around not putting any weight on that leg. And part of that is good, but just for a short time. But after a while, you have to start working that leg again. You have to start pushing yourself through some exercises. Some people go and get physical therapy if the injury is bad enough. And everybody that goes to physical therapy always comes back and says the same thing. That was painful. That was intense. That was terrible. I hate going to physical therapy. It's awful. But the result of going to physical therapy and putting yourself through those exercises with your trainer is that those muscles that have been damaged actually work through becoming stronger again. In fact, as strong or maybe even stronger than they ever were before the injury. But any good doctor will tell you, you can't just avoid working that muscle. You can't just stop using that leg, because what will happen is the muscles become so weak that actually they become weaker than they ever were, and they're so weak they'll actually let your bone slip out of the joint, because your muscle system and your skeletal system relies on your muscles being there and being strong, and you can end up needing that leg at some point, and as soon as you do, it'll let you down. It'll pop out, and you'll be in worse pain than you ever were before, maybe 2 or 3 times as much pain as the original hurt. And the writer is saying that, look, when you have had something hurt you've taken a wound, you've endured something, it's so important that you go through the proper way to heal that thing. There is a proper way, a proper training that you need to go through that will coach you through and rebuild that area of your life to become strong the way it should be strong. And by the same token, if you don't go through that proper healing, you actually become at risk of even more hurt, of future damage, maybe catastrophic damage in your life, if you don't get that thing worked on by the one who really knows and understands everything about your life and what happened to you. I sometimes think about people as being something like cats, where this is concerned. I think about cats. When I was a kid, we had lots of cats. We had a farm, so we had cats in the barn, and the typical thing. And the thing about cats that really got me is that when a cat gets hurt somehow or isn't feeling good, gets sick, a cat is not like a dog. A dog will come to you and whimper and help me, owner. But a cat will just disappear. They'll just walk off someplace where they think nobody's going to bother them or find them, and they'll just wait and wait and wait and wait. And often they actually just get so sick they just die, and you don't find out about it till way later when you happen onto this cat that's died. And it's it's kind of morbid, but I'm sharing it with you because I think it's real. And so I think about us kind of like cats. We would prefer when we're hurt to just go off someplace and just kind of clutch our pain and hold on to it and just wait until the pain goes away, and then maybe we'll get back into the action again. But the writer of Hebrews says you can't do that. You can't endure pain by yourself. You've got to have God walking through it with you as a father, as a coach, as a discipler. You've got to have him take you through it the right way, or it just won't heal right. It's something like breaking a bone. If you break a bone, somebody hit you so hard, they broke your leg. If you don't go to the doctor and get that leg set properly, it'll look healed for a while. But when it counts, it'll be weaker than it was supposed to be, and it may just let you down in a big way, in a very painful, damaging way. And the same thing could be said for your life, I believe. You may have things that haven't bothered you in a very, very long time. But if what this writer says is true, if those things weren't healed properly and walked through properly through the one who knows how everything should work and how everything needs to heal, there's a very good chance that those things will pop up again, and you'll get hit by something by surprise, and you'll get that sharp pain, that emotion coming out, and you'll react in a way that may damage whatever your relationships are, damage your finances, damage your faith. And I believe it's important to understand this principle, because there's a lot at stake in your life. There's so much at stake in your relationships, so much at stake in the future, in your eternal future. See, it's one thing to think that parts of your life may become damaged and make it harder, but the truth is, you and I both know that when things get hard and stay hard and keep coming up and revisiting old wounds, the truth is we get less and less and less faithful. We avoid God more and avoid God more until he becomes some faint thought that sometimes pops up here and there. Maybe something sets us off in a movie or conversation, and we think, oh yeah, God, yeah, maybe someday, maybe some way, but not till this is better. And so there's so much more at stake than just our future, but our relationship with God is affected. If we don't invite him to walk through us with the hard things, we'll never walk through anything with him. I believe that's the truth. Some of you are wondering if you have anything that's old, that's still in there, that isn't healed right. And honestly, if nothing is popping up right away, well, I don't know what those things are for you. But here's a clue. If you have people that know you well, and they're sometimes shocked by your reaction to something, there's a good chance that there's something that isn't quite the way it should be. It's left over from an old battle scar. If you have people that know you well that are afraid to confront you about certain subjects because they know you're going to react big and it's going to be sudden and it's going to be hot, there's a good chance that you have something that isn't quite healed the way God would have healed it if he had walked through it with you. Now, some of you may come up with things right off the top of your head. Some of you, it might be a little harder. Some of you have to have conversations about that. Some of you have things that you're still dealing with, and your assumption was that you became a believer, and so since you've become a believer and have been working on some things with God, that if God wanted to do something about those things, he would have already done it, and he just is happy not to. But I challenge you to think differently. I challenge you to look back and ask whether or not you had God helping you through that situation when it happened. And if you didn't, then now would be the time to invite God to come take a look at that old scar and ask him, is that really healed or not? If it isn't, would you walk through the process with me so that I'm not at risk of this thing ever coming back to hurt me again? And I would tell the same thing to anybody that's ever had any kind of scarring take place. Might have been when you were a kid, might have been as an adult, might have been yesterday, might be somebody's bruising you up pretty badly right now. If that's the case, I would say now is the time, no matter what, now is the time to invite God in to look at that area, the one where you have the scar. Not just the good place, the one that you have the scar. Invite him in there and say, God, Father, would you look at this and tell me, is this really healed, or is there something more that needs to happen? And can you walk me through it, please? Now's the time to do that. I'm inviting and I'm just challenging you right now to just stop where you're at. Whatever you're doing, just pause and slow down. If you're driving, pull over to the side of the road here for a minute. Okay, if you're upstairs in the bathroom and trying to get a little peace, then just stay where you are for a moment, even though the kids are knocking on the door. Wherever you are this morning, just pause and set something down and just pause and pray with me for a moment about this thing. This is the one thing that you could do today that may make the rest of your life very, very different. Father, would you take a look? Would you take a look at the thing that scarred me, that wounded me? Would you look at it and do what you need to do? Check it over and coach me through whatever it is that I need to do to come out stronger. I have so much that I look forward to, a future, a hope with you, but I don't want some old scar to wound me a second time or a third time or a fourth time. I don't want to be paying for the wound of the past in the future. God, will you walk me through and fix what needs to be fixed? Coach me, mentor me, disciple me through whatever comes my way. And God, I trust you to do what you need to do. Though it may seem painful in the moment, I know that you're going to make me stronger. You're going to give me more peace in the end. I'm going to have more confidence because of the way that you lead me through this thing. Amen. I appreciate your stopping to take that time with me this morning. And I ask that if some of these things don't quite make sense to you the first time around, give them some thought. Watch this message a second time today, maybe on 1 1/4 speed if you don't want to spend as much time on it. But listen and pray and ask God, is there something? Even if you can't recognize it right away, is there something? Because to be truthful, if you have areas that get big reactions out of you, that shock people sometimes, the way that you go off, the way that you hurt, the emotions that rise up, there's a good chance something in there is not scarred over quite the way that God would have had it heal. If you like this message this morning, then share it wherever you are, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We appreciate you doing that. It's not just for you, it's for anyone that you know. So share that with people if you think it's going to help them. And don't forget, if you're giving to this ministry and supporting what we do here at Faith Fellowship, we can always give online. You can go to faithfellowshipwatertown.com and give online. If you've never given online before, it's very fast to set up. But for right now, my biggest concern, pray this morning. Pray and ask God what He would do to help you heal. Thanks, guys.